Good morning and welcome to the daily chapter reading of It's Your Loss. No, Dr. Shi Tao says, how do we think about the lost thing safely? The final stage of grief is usually acceptance. This is when we have to come to terms with the fact that what we have lost is actually lost, and that the best way to move on from it is to acknowledge this and live alongside the memory. This might be the first time you start to relive those moments with the lost person or thing, and that it feels okay. Yes, life might be different, but there is hope for it to still be meaningful. The reason that you are suffering greatly is probably because that person or thing made your life amazing in so many ways, so it does not make sense to write them or it out of your life forever. When the time comes, those memories will be enriching and beautiful. Getting your feelings out there is so important. That could be talking and describing your loss to others. From here, you will gain perspective in addition to that feeling of getting stuff off your chest. You may even hear about other losses, which may reassure and soothe you. If it was the loss of a person, bring them to life and memories. Remember why you were missing them so much. It's highly likely that it's because you adored that person and how they cherished you and made you feel about yourself. So remind yourself of that, because those are the qualities you want to keep in your life. Having reminders about you or even on you can be comforting, but overindulging or obsessing over someone or something and keeping their possessions all around you is less healthy and potentially further traumatizing. Focus on the good memories in good proportions and remind yourself of what that person or thing brought into your life and how it impacts on the way you live now. The material things will be there, and someday that might not be, but those memories, the intricacies of the way you are, is what lives on and is most important. Of course, we know we have absorbed the knowledge deeply into our bodies, deeper into ourselves. We have offered and received the cliche countless times in earnest tones. It will get easier. But knowing that doesn't make loss any more bearable. The entire collection this poem is from, and this poem in particular, is a manifestation of that sentiment, that is suffering, like all else, will eventually become a memory. And in fact, soon enough, it will be impossible to feel it in the way you feel it now. I asked myself once I finished a thing, what is this for? Is it useful? And I figured this collection could be useful if only it could offer that, a real-time detailing of exactly that thing. That no matter how it feels right now, if you can bear it, you will bear it. You 2.0 Greeks dissolved. When nothing feels like it will ever be the same again, how can loss begin to feel like a force or good in your life? Emma. So this is it, the grand moment, Phoenix from the flames. Robin, still a very sad Phoenix, just crucially not on fire. Emma, I don't think the sadness really ever goes away. Robin, no, but it is less regular, sometimes just as potent though. Emma, we both felt guilty for having the thing that losing them gave us, and I think it's taken me a while to get used to the fact that it's okay to build on your loss foundations. Robin, it is very difficult to sit with the fact you did some good shit because a very bad thing happened. Not in spite of it, literally because of it. I know I would not want to change those years, but equally it would be great if Nana wasn't dead. Emma, yeah, if Mom hadn't died, I would not be doing a lot of the things that I am doing, and I wouldn't know myself as well as I do. Those losses took so much away from us, but allowed us to have so much in return. Robin, on you. What comes after loss? The one who can't bear a story without a moral. Okay, strap in for some sweeping moments, statements, controversial hypotheses, and a smattering of conflicting information, because this chapter is going to be an absolute doozy. I'll start with the big one. I believe my loss freed me, which is a very difficult thing to acknowledge, as it also popped me into an eternal glass box of emotion. Box. But that box was handily magnified, and it set a lot of the problems I thought I had into relief against the backdrop of one big, unsolvable one.
Franklin Station.
Not that I'd rather have that than the things that went away, but I wouldn't go back. But it helped me move forward. But I would give anything to have my Nan here. But I wouldn't want to be the Robin I was when she was. And therein lays the terrible contradiction of loss, both helpful and an absolute hindrance. Losing something is always accompanied by a massive dose of associated learning, even if that learning is as simple as, I hate to lose that thing. When and only when you're with it enough to properly assess what's going on around you, you'll look up at the path ahead and realize you're actually at the start of the gladiator assault course, or the floor is lava. Someone blows a whistle and you're left looking forward to something that is completely physical in its impossibility. You're tired, you already did all the challenges before when everything was a blur, and now someone is expecting you to have the superhuman strength it requires to jump, lift, sprint, and dangle your way to emotional freedom. Plus, there's not even a trophy at the other end, just another slightly easier assault course, and then an easier one again. And so until getting around your loss takes all the energy of bossing a children's activity playground. It took a lot to get there. You have terrible shin splints and giant blisters. You cried with agony tons, but now you can do it with relative ease. If you told me when I first lost anything, even my favorite scarf, that I'd be changed, and perhaps in some ways improved by learning to live without that thing, I would to this day probably thump you in the guts, but in the fullness of time, I'd calm down, have a big think, and acknowledge that accepting the unknowingness of life and the fragility of relationships with people, places, and things is pretty okay. That the narrative we create for ourselves that we hold on to so fiercely and that serves us as our internal compass, leading us on towards a fate we consider predestined, is in reality completely beyond the realms of our control. That the script we write for our lives changes daily, mainly in imperceptible ways and sometimes in massive, hideous ones that incinerate all the pages. We are also adjusting the focus, retuning our fuzzy TV sets, and leaning into the plot twists. We don't tend to notice the colleague leaving, the way our bodies change over the course of a year, the wearing out of clothes, or the news agents turning into a coffee shop. But we do notice the brakes on, about turn end of a romance, the death of a friend, the conclusion of a career, or can irreversibly change to our health or circumstances, and we just do a bigger pivot. The direction we are heading in is adjusted, and us with it. And that next generation us, heading south, southeast instead of just southeast, will learn new things by osmosis and by the loss itself. It's multi-layered and passive and inevitable, which is nice when everything seems such a terrible, burdensome effort. Losing Barbara came with bonus serving of profound enlightenment, which was convenient. That was the almost immediate realization that my Nan had actually been all the things I'd so desperately wanted my mom to be. She had been caring and nurturing and challenging and just a joy. I loved being around her. When I felt at home and protected, my sanctuary. Not perfect by any means, but just always there. And then she wasn't, and suddenly I realized I'd been wanting so hard I didn't enjoy the having enough. That I had an extraordinary relationship with Nan and with teachers I'd mentioned, and friends moms and relatives of all descriptions, and with the various other people that had dropped into my life at just the right time to scoop me up. That I had received more love than your average. And suddenly, instead of feeling like the unlovable daughter, I felt tremendously lucky. What a thing to be loved in abundance. Surely with that in your back pocket, you can do anything. All you need really is love. Lose it. For the first few weeks, months, or years, depending on your timeline, after losing something, what fills the space that the lost thing filled is a sense of loss for that thing. Like a security blanket knitted out of memories, you just wrap that round you and are comforted by the facsimile of the actual thing. That's okay for a bit. In early loss, you deserve that relief, and I say relish walking around in your blankie like a toddler. But there comes a time when you have to pull off the comforter and take stock. Hideous, I know, but actually the blanket is getting a bit ripe and you need to let your skin breathe. That's when it's time to look at loss. Examining it can be hard because you can't detach the loss from the self. Maybe imagine
Franklin Station.
putting
Doors
everything in your
normally
life on
open
a
on the
very
left.
long shelf, just all of it. Turn every precious thing into a china figurine. One day, the world is going to just straight up knock that shelf down. Gulp. And shock horror, one thing is not going to make it. But let's not focus on the lost thing, because you've had ages to do that. Let's look at everything on the floor. It's a mess, but luckily the rest is intact. And you'll check on the things in order of priority. You will rank things in terms of importance. Notice that if you can, which things you are quickest to pick up and give you the most comfort, where you put them back on the shelf, what takes center stage, and which things gently fill the gaps of your favorite thing now smashed to smithereens.
The
In
next
the
stop
moments
is
you are least
Barlow
able to
Maxwell
rifle through
Station.
your feelings, what you do on autopilot will be very revealing. Autopilot me didn't reach for my mum. In fact, she saw that my mum was a life-sized porcelain poodle and was taking up a lot of room on the shelf, obscuring the view of the other treasured things and actually being a bit of a liability. That sounds really cold and really harsh, but that space she was taking up was wasted because of the nature of the relationship. So I took her off the shelf. I wouldn't have been able to if I still had my Nan on the shelf, as they were a matching set, and the Nan figurine was handily also installed with a speaker and would regularly say, "Robin, all I want is for you and your
Barlow
mom to get
Maxwell
along."
Station.
And because I
Doors
loved
normally
Nan very much,
open
it was
on the
easier
left.
to relent. I saw my relationship with my mom completely differently, PBD. So she remained on the shelf, taking up so much bloody room. But ABD, I had the freedom to choose. All the wonderful expectations I wanted to live up to were gone, but so were the things I did out of duty. I think that's why some families completely implode when they lose someone, because the silent obligations and standards they had to live up to are gone, and everyone loosens their waistbands and breathes out and admits they didn't actually like Uncle Carlos after all. Don't get me wrong, some knit together even tighter, and that is glorious, but some, like mine, don't. It's like leaving a job. Sometimes you think you've got the best damn group of colleagues in the world, that you will be in
The
touch
next
with
stop is Calgary Zoo Station.
Dakshi, Claudia, and Frank forever. 2 years down the line, you're actively avoiding them on Facebook. It was circumstance that made it feel great, not the lineup. But sometimes you worked with a fantastic group of cats, and 5 years later, you still have a thoroughly entertaining WhatsApp group, a small business, and are real friends because the universe knew you were better together. The result of a loss is only knowable in the past tense, but my main point is that in losing something, you may allow yourself to shed other things that don't serve you because of lack of obligation, or because with a new perspective you see it's not right for you, or just reduced capacity. That's good and healthy and removes some unnecessary emotional heft from your already spilling over knapsack of everything. Use it. I never thought I'd use Kim Kardashian as a poster girl for anything ever. But when I say you can gather up all the things you learned through loss, pop them in a blender and sprinkle in a touch of please be proud of me and a splash of I could do anything if I just did that, then you'll create a nourishing smoothie guaranteed to power you on to get through the
Calgary Zoo
day.
Station.
I mean it.
Doors normally open on the left.
What has this got to do with the Kardashians, I hear you cry? Well, I'll tell you. Kim Kardashian is a woman who very publicly lost a parent, relationships, the shape of the family that came next, friendships, and one copy of a sex tape. I spent a long time thinking, ew, Kim K, seriously, give it a rest. I've seen more of your naked body than conceivably my own. But now I say, Kimmy, I hear you, Sonar. You're a woman treading a weirdly similar path to me, and I've time for that. Because Kim Kardashian lost a dad who seemed like her everything, and now she's doing one of the most empowering things you can do with that loss. She's honoring it. Not with Kim's or her lovely highlighters, but by being inspired by and energized through her dad's memory. She's using his faith in her to try to become an actual lawyer. Who saw that coming? But it's cool, I get it. I look at Kim Kardashian and I think, you're a bit amazing to do that, to use his love for something excellent, to say, this is what he gave me and I'll be damned if I wasted whatever the entire global population thinks. What a tribute. Much better than the appalling hologram Kanye gave you for your birthday. Losing someone doesn't mean losing the sense of who they thought you were or the fact they fervently believed you could do anything. My nan honestly said to me regularly, and from being a tiny dot, you can be anything you want to be, even the Prime Minister. Now I think she might have been a little misguided, but confidence bolstered me. It pushed me forward and made me feel entitled to be in a certain rooms, confident that my voice should be heard and that was special and unique and gifted. That's the minimum any parent should instill, the sense that their child is extraordinary. Robert Kardashian gave that to his children, and it's still there. His voice in their subconscious, egging them on, telling them they can be anything. It's unmissable, and when you look at them through that lens, pretty excellent. You might not share their aspiration, but to see a family who were so informed by someone who's gone, who feel invincible because a person had the ultimate faith in them, well, that's inspiring. They used that to literally take over the world. And the lost thing doesn't have to be as momentous as a parent. It could be a job that made you feel capable, a lover who made you feel lovable, a nervous dog that taught you that you just have to be infinitely patient. Let the traces of them fuel you, help you know yourself better, and form the current version of you 2.0. Or in other words, Greeks dissolved. They're written into your coding now and will hopefully make you softer and more self-aware, like Arnie in the Terminator 2. I used Nan's faith in me to push myself forward, and I used the situation that loss left me in to do something I've always wanted to. I have always written, always. But it took my Nan dying to find something big enough to write about in a prolonged way. It started with the notebook I kept to give to her after she got better, charting all the humorous things that happened while she was sick. It ended with this totally different book that you're reading right now. It made me look at what I wanted to be and also what I wanted to put out into the world. What I want to be is helpful. If just one person reads this and feels a little less hopeless, then I will have done her proud. She taught me the importance of caring. She meted it out liberally, and while I won't be the matriarch of the kind of massive, unruly family she was so proud of, I'll use her teachings in my own style. I'll do care my own way. Because this book is mainly there to say I'm here, and I see you, and although I don't know you, I care about you and whatever hideous predicament you find yourself in. By gosh, there's a value to that. As I've said, probably too much, the importance of feeling understood cannot be understated. So use all of it. Lay out all the things that you're left with after loss, all the things that you like and don't, all the things that have changed and the ways you are rebuilt and the new expertise you've acquired. Do a skills audit on you. Sounds demented, but look at you now. The you that survived. This resourceful, powerful, unsinkable you. And think about all the things you have and how you could use them. How they could create a toolkit to make you happier, the spaces that are left to fill, and the new freedoms you're now afford. Write it now down if it's helpful. Think of it like that weird career test you did in a secondary school. It's likely the results will be quite different now from the ones you got at 16. It will help you see a new path when everything is a bit smoggy. And who doesn't love a big shouty road sign? Improve it. Now this is the one that will have people rolling their eyes. Let's go next level. You've pruned back the things that no longer fits in the new world you inhabit. You've looked at the fragments of what's left and the map they form, going forward. Now you have to look at how you fit into this and to do some of that hacking back and building up on yourself. Because you can also actively shape you 2.0. You can be brutal, you can be courageous, you can be very honest, you can say, I have to work on me to be the me I want to be. Once again, for everyone in the back row, therapy, I think of who and what you want to be and what you in isolation have to do to achieve that. It's very easy to think you've gone through a lot and aren't you an absolute hero for making it, and do you are, but you're also a human being, which means you are deeply flawed. You may have been forced to grow in ways that aren't helpful, but that's not so easily remedied. The natural shape of me is self-involved. impatient, and cruel if provoked. Loss made me want to be better at this. There was a shift towards it because of circumstances, of course, but it also takes active work. So look at the ways you came out of this. You're probably a bit bent out of shape, but you can work out a strategy for putting that right. Model out how you can be the very best you 2.0 you can imagine. It may be talking or journaling or having tough conversations. Having a look at how you can actively improve you is not an easy step. It will be uncomfortable and infuriating and to take effort, but it's a step that will make you disproportionately happier in the long run. So there you have it, in some ways that loss can benefit you. How becoming familiar with its shape and form can make its learnings transferable to all different kinds of loss, and in that way take the edge off them too. As my granddad says, it's better for knowing, and it really is. It is less scary and more of an unfortunate inevitability. To be forewarned is to be forearmed, and I really think as a society we don't give loss anymore near enough airtime. It might make you hold enough to start the business you always dreamed of. It might make you calm enough to no longer see the world's problems as your problems because you have encountered the biggest and most unsolvable problem there is. It might not seem to change you at all. I can't say the pros outweigh the cons, and I bounce between gratitude for the person my experiences have allowed me to become and the fury for the huge hole I still have inside. It's a process, but if you take one thing from this chapter, let it be to know that it might not all be bad.